Have you ever wondered how you can own your own publishing and your masters? It's a popular question that everyone asks all the time, but really, what does it boil down to, and what does the ownership mean? Find out next, coming up on the Music Money Makeover Show. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Music Money Makeover Show. This is season 2, episode 6, right? We're chugging along, right? So let me finish that intro statement. By the way, my name is Casey Graham. Thank you for coming back. But let me chime in on that intro statement a little bit, all right? So in order to focus on owning your masters and owning your publishing, we have to take a look at the actual copyright itself. And that's where everything boils down to. It boils down to the ownership of the copyright, all right? It doesn't start with having a BMI account or ASCAP account or PRS account or whatever it is you have. It doesn't start with that. It always starts with the intellectual property. And that's what we're covering today, all right? So the first thing that we're going to jump into before you like, comment, and subscribe, or at least subscribe to the show, is ownership. All right, now what does ownership have to do with the copyright? Right? It's kind of like a very easy question to answer, but it has everything to do with the ownership of the master. All right? So from previous episodes, you know we have 2 sets of copyrights. We have the copyright for the sound recording, and then we also have the copyright for the actual lyrics and melody, all right? And that's form SR and form PA, okay? Now, let's dig into ownership. Let's break it down and look at all the pieces of it. I want to address the initial ownership, all right? So when you make a work or a song or whatever you want to call it, the original piece of intellectual property is created by a true person, all right? No company can own it just yet. Wait a minute, I'll get there. But you, the person, created this work, all right? And you are the sole owner. Now, if it was 2 people, it'd be considered something called a joint work of 2 co-authors making a piece of intellectual property together, okay? The authorship is the beginning stages of the copyright, all right? Let's dig a little bit deeper in the ownership. You'll see how the authorship starts to go with everything else, all right? Now, the work for hire, just as I just said a few seconds ago, we're not worried about companies yet, but work for hires are the first stage in which you may lose your actual masters and your publishing rights or your song or the rights to the intellectual property of the song, form PA, okay? So when you have a work for hire, you essentially are an employee for someone, or someone commissions you for a piece of intellectual property, in this instance, that you will sell to them or give to them for an exchange of something, okay? And this in turn lets the work for hire person become the new owner, all right? Now I'm going to get into what has to happen for that to combine and make sense. But if you're one single person, someone that is a company can take over your copyright, or another person can take over your copyright. And in this sense, I'm going to use a company, all right? So the true author is you, the person. And this will be on file with the U.S. government or just any copyright office around the world, depending on the laws of that particular country. And then the person will then sell to the company, all right? Now that company will now be the holder of the work. It won't be the author, but the author will not own the work anymore, all right? So the company will own that work now. You see what I'm saying? We sold it to a company, or it could be a record company or publishing company. When we transfer that, remember that word because I'm going to get to it later. When we transfer that ownership over, we remain the titled credited author, but the company is now the holder. It's that simple. Now, if you understand what I said with those 2 explanations, then we're just going to give a brief definition of the author, all right? The author is the first person, remember, that creates the work and then transfers it to a tangible form. If you remember last episode, I'll throw it up in the suggested videos up here somewhere. If you remember in the last episode, we talked about tangible and fixed mediums. The author is the first entity person that will create the tangible fixed medium. So we're going to create a song, whether it be on Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, you name it, whatever it is you're using, right? And we're going to take that and then we're going to transfer it to a CD, MP3, WAV, AIFF, vinyl, whatever it is, tape deck, cassette, whatever, and you're going to put it in a tangible medium. And once you do that, those are the two tasks of the author when it comes to intellectual property. Now, in addition to the author, previously I said that the author remains the author and the company who purchased the work or the intellectual property or your copyright thereof, if they purchase it, they are just a purchaser. It is only when the author transfers all rights in whatever the contract says to the company. If they do so and they decide to take the name off of the work, then that company owns that work completely. All right? Now, if it's a record company and they do it from the beginning, right, then the record company, if the record company paid for the studio time, then the artist or whoever it is doing the recording does not own it, but the record company does it because they paid the artist to go in and record it, and so therefore the record company owns it. Now, you may get a piece of it in what's called artist royalties or artist points or producer points or whatever, but you don't actually own the work. They do. Okay? So you have to negotiate how much royalty you want off of it. It's like, okay, if I owned 100% of the sound recording, which is the master copyright, and I allowed you to get 20% of it as an artist. All right, I'll give you 20% of the revenue of this master recording, but I'll keep 80. But I own it. I'll just give you 20% of the revenue we generate from this. That's how the ownership of the master works. Now, if you don't want to sign up with the record company for that reason, there are other deals you can do. You don't have to do a record deal. You could do a licensing deal. You can do a partnership deal. You can do a distribution deal. There's so many other options that you have, okay? And you don't always have to go along with what the record company is saying. I think people get that confused all the time. They think that you actually have to do what the record company is saying. You get what you negotiate. You can put anything you want to in your contract and negotiate anything you want to in that contract. Whether they will say yes or no, whatever. But I think that it's worth the time to negotiate a contract and not rush into a quick, cheap deal. You know, do what it is you want to do in that deal and say what it is you want to say and have your piece with the record deal before giving your masters away. All right? When you started, you owned everything, but you needed more capital to expand, so you had to give your masters away. All right? And I always want to make this clear to artists. You don't actually own all, you will never own all of your masters unless you do everything yourself. When you start getting people to help you, whether or not you own it, let's say you own your own record company, right? If you own your own record company, you still have to pay out people on pieces of that master. You have to pay the producer royalty. You may have to pay something for the executive producer, right? Anybody else, a second record company or finance source that helped you do it. You may have to pay a royalty out for them. There's so many other royalty streams you have. Just because you own it doesn't mean that all the cash stays with you. I just want to clear that up so you all don't think that you're just owning all of your publishing and owning all of your masters and all the cashes to yourself. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of artists get. All right, so I am going to jump into a couple more things here. Sit tight. Now, we just finished talking about everything that encompasses the creation and the ownership of the work. And I talked a brief bit about transfer of ownership. But let's dig into the transfer of ownership so you can see. Now, when you transfer a work to someone, it is done by means of conveyance. So you have to write something out, right? The transference letter, transference of rights, whatever it is you want to call it, whatever lawyer you have, whatever it's done, it's in every contract. When you're transferring, especially producer contracts, it's in there. It's always written in there, so you have to transfer your rights to the record company or the artist company or whatever, whoever it is that will own the master. You have to transfer those rights over to them in order to get your royalty, all right? Or if you're financing it, you can split profit, all right, and split ownership, whatever it is you work out. But this is how the rights are transferred to the next party, all right? So you write this transference letter. So for everybody, wait a minute. Bonus tip. For everybody who is leasing beats, these beats are done on licenses, all right? For artists that are leasing beats off of BeatStars and SoundClick, if that's still popping, you name it. Any of those beat lease stores or from anyone, all right? You do not own that master recording. And if they didn't give you rights to sell it, you're infringing, okay? And because they didn't, they could sell it to as many people as they want to. It doesn't matter until the producer says he's transferring you the rights to the copyright. All of it, right? You paid in full for the track. Then you don't own it. Therefore, you can't sell it. And if you read these licensing agreements, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's written in plain black and white, but it's just most of you all don't read. And I get it. I know. I know you just want to make the music. You don't really care about the business, but the business is what brings you the cash. How you gonna have a career if you don't know how to get the cash? It's about capital and revenue. You gotta understand this stuff. All right, let me keep going. Now, to make this transfer valid, okay, you actually have to have it written. You can't just. This is not a verbal communication here. This must be written it could be written on a napkin, it could be written in contractual form, however you want to do it. You have to give notice of this transfer. If you do not, it never happens. I've been through this situation with a lot of records and people think they own it, but I'm like, you don't own it. I never transferred you anything, but because I know, it doesn't bother me. I can go to sleep at night. Oh, you wanted to put it out for free, huh? Okay, let's see what you do. You know, but that's a tactic for another day. I won't get in. That's the inner workings of the business, but maybe I'll give that sometime down the line. All right. So look, now that we talked about everything that encompassed the ownership, then we talked about the transfer. Let's jump into the term of ownership. This is some good stuff. Now, for the sake of keeping it simple, I'm only going to cover what the law talks about from 1978 on up to present day. Okay. So you might have seen on my Instagram, I posted something saying that the life of the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. Now, this is true if the author does not transfer it in a work for hire agreement, which normally happens with the record company. A work for hire happens with the record company on average. Nowadays, people are doing more licensing deals and letting the record company hold their records so they can promote it big and make some cash, and then they give the ownership back. But still on average, everybody's trading the copyright for cash, right? Up front. All right, that's where your producer advance and your artist advance and all this other stuff comes from. All right? So, the author's life plus 70 years. If it's the author and another friend and they wrote it, it's the whoever dies last plus 70 years of the last person who died. Now, this is in America. This doesn't have anything to do with, like, I think I looked up India. The life of theirs is the life of the author plus 50 or 60 years or something like that. But in America, it is the life of the author plus 70 years. If there's 2 people, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, I hope it's not that many people, but sometimes it is. Whoever dies last, it is their death plus 70 years. That's the term of the actual contract with the government of how long your copyright lasts before you have to renew it. All right? Just keeping it simple, but that's what it means. That's your term. That's the length of time that you actually own it. And if you don't go back and renew, then someone else can come and get it from you. All right? That's the simple statement. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but that can happen. All right? It's happening now. So I just want to keep that clear. Now let's tack on the actual people who bought it from you or paid you to do the work. Now, if they didn't actually do the work and you transferred it in a transfer of rights memorandum or whatever, then that company will own that copyright for the term of 90 years. Okay? From the date, 90 years, they will own that copyright for 90 years from the date of publication. What does publication mean? Publication means the day that you actually put it up for sale. All right? To the masses. You distribute it out. That's what it means. Or Or let's say you sell the work to someone, right, in a work for hire, transference of rights, and you sell it to them, then the term will start at 120 years from the day it was generated. All right? So if they don't put it out, then they at least have the term of, 30 years. They have 30 years to hold before they can put it out. And this is actually happening today. Some record companies have bought up old masters, right? Or just have them sitting in the vault. And if it gets to that point where it's been 30 years, they're going to have to do something to get that extension going. Like, okay, let's get the 90. Let's get it in that 90 window. Let's do something for the rest of the 90 years so we can generate cash flow on the intellectual property. All right? So, look, I know it was short. I wanted to be clear, concise, and straight to the point on ownership. All right? Now, the next episode that's coming up, we're talking more in depth on infringement. I will go back through what I did on episode 5, and on episode 7, we'll dig into infringement so you can understand. All right, a little bit more, because people are actually requesting, my gosh, I didn't know you all really cared about infringement like that. But yes, I will, and I'll explain sample clearances in the next episode. I'll make that promise to you. Episode 7, sample clearances are coming. You can count on it. All right. Anyway, that's been it for today's Music Money Makeover show. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for everyone who's watching. If you could, for me, please like, comment, and subscribe below. All right, the subscribe button is right here and the like button is right here. And then you can also find some stuff on the side. You can find the extra videos on the sides of this video here that you can watch and get more information and learn. Look, you're not going to find anyone like me on YouTube giving this information out in detailed fashion. Most people don't even know this stuff. I'm just keeping it frank. The people that do know are just up in the big buildings, and I don't really care. Anyway, download below, before you go, download a free copy of my profit maximization checklist. It's a checklist for you to maximize your profits 90 days pre-release and post-release. All right? So make sure you get all your money, man. I'm giving you everything that you need. Anyway, I will see you all on episode 7 next week. Peace.